Hi, this November I've been talking about the waning, and it's no accident that the themes are centered around captivity and feeling trapped and miserable. So, for this month's reading, I thought I would start at the beginning of the book because that is where the story itself began. The waning started as a short that was just a glimpse of a woman who had been in captivity for so long that she had developed Stockholm Syndrome. And I just had this flash of inspiration and captured just that moment. And my publisher at the time was pressing for another book, so I stretched that into the novel, and here we are. So I will go ahead and read from the very beginning of The Waning. Drip, drip, drip. The sound of those perpetual droplets echoes through the darkness. Drip, drip, drip. In the black sensory deprivation, my mind becomes bat-like, constructing the tiny world around me from the way the sound moves. Drip, drip, drip. My brain is on macro, hovering beside the trembling and bulging drop of water until it plummets, shape rippling to the concrete below. Then the water explodes over the floor and my consciousness levitates back to the next. Each splat ripples through the otherwise silent air, causing the shapes to materialize. My eyes still feel as if they are seeing, as if my mind assembles the image before them out of habit. My retinas are only transmitting black. My other senses simply complete the gaps. I can hear how close the rough walls are. I can sense how low the plain ceiling is. My mind traces the flat shapes conjured from thin memories of the brief visitations of light in this dark place. I do not have to see to know the box of a room is concrete. I can feel the lifeless cold radiating against me from all sides. I do not need light to remember how harsh the materials are. The abrupt collision of the sound of the drips against a flat and unforgiving surface paints the severity in my mind. My breathing is shallow, and the only other sound in my tomb. It can barely be heard over the drops, even as the air circles through my sinuses so close to my ears. My body curls up in suspended animation. My cell defers in my dark hibernation. My inhales are sluggish and weak, flirting with hesitation between each. My heartbeat has decelerated and become lazy. It has no reason to work, as I have not moved in hours. I don't even waste time blinking. I let my eyelids drape. The room looks the same with my eyes opened or closed when you leave me here like this. If you were watching, you would see only the most minimal movement from my body as I wait for you. I curl up in my cage, curl up in my mind, curl up in my submission. I imagine that you are watching, that you have embedded surveillance in the walls, cameras tucked away in the dark shadows. I act as if you can always see me. I am yours even when you are not here. The the inexorable dripping should have driven me mad long ago. It definitely threatened to more than once. Of course the leak is by design. Of course my ability to hear it in every moment I pass in here is planned. Everything in this room is done by your purpose, created just for me. It took me a long time to realize that, to see the method in the seeming madness. It took me even longer to appreciate the significance. I should have still been aware of the thin bars pressing into my flesh as I lay balled up on my side. I should have not been able to ignore that sharp, constant pressure at every contact point in my body. However, my nerves started to ignore them long ago. The slim metal bars cradled me in their arms before contouring into a sturdy square sealed with an ominous lock. Such a brilliant mechanism, my cage, a matryoshka of my small and dark room itself. It sits near the back corner, not unlike a large dog crate. A prison within a dungeon, a restraint within a cell. I live in this tiny box. It is my safety, my existence, the only remaining space of my world, the only possession I could retain, granted to me by you. I can feel the temperature of the concrete floor as I hover inches above it, floating in the embrace of the bars. I can imagine extending my limbs as they rest folded against my torso. With my back against one side, I cannot stretch out my arms. My elbows remain angled. With my scalp pressing against a bar, my legs remain doubled against themselves. I'm not meant to move. I'm not meant to live. Here in my cage, I am meant to wait. As the hours and days and months swept across the concrete floor beneath us, my emerging skeleton became akin to the bars, fused in forced familiarity. My fingers know every cross in the bars, every nick in the steel, from absent fumbles over the metal in the dark. Learned from confinement like I would learn myself, finding an extension of myself in that safe cube. This is your world I live in. The thin gauge of the cage bars pressing into my thighs, a constant pressure. The less than ambient temperature in the room, always keeping my hair follicles at attention. The darkness split only by that light occasionally under the door, just enough for my pupils to stretch into sight. The proportions of the space to my ever-withering size, all carefully crafted in your meticulous fantasies that I strive to fulfill daily. I try not to think in these black lulls. I try not to let that raging sea of thoughts, those tumultuous emotions of my old self rise up in me. She is always there, menacing right beneath the surface, threatening to bring back all that suffering, her delusions and fantasies and desires that only promise to rip my pathetic heart still beating and bleeding from my now frail chest. No, sleep, rest, wait for you. I force my shallow breathing to blank my mind, empty my head. No thought of where I am, where I thought I should be, where you are, how my body feels. I insist on only hearing my contracted world. Drip, drip, drip. Like the quiet thump, 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 dying in my chest. I only totally mangled one word. It's been a rough quarantine. I forgot how to speak out loud, besides yelling at my kids. But if you want to read about more confinement, you can find the Waning. For Black Friday, it's in a bundle with my first book, Savages, for just 99 cents through the weekend. So you can follow the link in my link tree to find it on Amazon.